Well, there could be a little bit of hope or some green shoots when it does come to the situation that has long been ongoing between Google and the Australian government. This is all centred around that piece of legislation that they are looking to push through Parliament that would force the likes of Google and Facebook to pay the media providers for the media content that does appear on their platforms. Now, the Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, actually had a conversation with the Alphabet CEO, Sundar Pichai, a little bit earlier on this morning, and he says it was a constructive meeting and that he sent signals to encourage them to engage with this new law. And he said they were very respectful in addressing their concerns when it does come to this issue. And this is a little bit of what the Prime Minister had to say about perhaps the path forward when it does come to this issue with Alphabet.
We discussed some of the specifics of elements of the code, and they raised those matters, I think, very respectfully. But I think we've been able to get that into a much more positive space about the ability to continue to provide services here in Australia. But at the end of the day, they understand that Australia sets the rules for how these things operate, and I was very clear about how I saw this playing out.
So it's going to be interesting. Does this mean that perhaps some of the tensions that were simmering are going to be smoothed out? We did hear, remember, just a couple of weeks ago from the Australian-New Zealand boss of Google that they were threatening to pull their search engine services. Microsoft's already stepped up to the plate and said they're very much willing to engage with this legislation as it is currently being suggested and pay the media content providers for the use of their news on their platform. And it is interesting because Google has 95% of the market here in Australia. Microsoft only has 4% or less than 4% of the search engine market. So if Google doesn't come to the table and find a way to come to some kind of agreement with the Australian government, because they're not backing down about passing this legislation, it's going to be interesting whether or not it's Microsoft that steps in or one of the other search providers here, and whether or not, Christine, any other regulatory body around the world decides to jump in on this as well and do similar things in their jurisdictions.